There are 3 videos I recorded recently that I've gotten a lot of questions about, and I keep kind of going back and forth in the comment sections of those videos addressing the same themes. Seems like over and over and over and over. And I thought I would just take a moment here and talk with you about those videos and the themes in question. And they are the Logan Smothers video, the Garrett Nelson video, and the Georgia National Championship video. All right, so let's talk about the 3 videos in the past that I want to discuss here a little bit more specifically. One is the Logan Smothers video. People watch that video, and I had some folks say that when it comes to Logan Smothers, my take is this: he's a good player, deserves more playing time, and we should see him in some roles or some special packages more often. Last year they should have had him starting over Chuba Purdy when Casey Thompson went down. I just think the guy, he's got a lot to offer, and Nebraska has underused him and maybe misused him in a lot of ways. And some people took that to mean I think he should receive a gift of some sort of charity or whatever. That just because he's on the team, he deserves a chance to play. Let me be clear. I do not believe that Logan Smothers just deserves a chance to play because he's on the team, he's been a loyal guy and all that. No, that's not it. But I think that you're not thinking clearly if you think it's only because of his skill level he's not getting more playing time or didn't get more playing time. Remember, the team he joined with Scott Frost was a team headed by a guy that many people think doomed the team by sticking with Adrian Martinez. Now, I don't agree with that, but I do agree with the fact that his loyalty to Adrian Martinez did cloud his vision in a lot of ways that other coaches and other eras might not have been quite so clouded. I mean, to be so locked in on Adrian Martinez as Scott Frost was, I think you have to look at that and you have to understand how the team was built before 2023. And if you don't think that some coaches play favorites, you just don't understand football. That's another problem here too. Last year, you can say, well, if he was better in practice, he'd get more time. You can't say that. You absolutely cannot know what's actually happening in practice. You don't know what's going on. And favorites and, so many layers of the Logan Smothers story, we're just not going to know. But when I look on paper, I see his stats when he has played. I know his commitment to the team. I just think he should be given more playing time, and I hope that Matt Rule will give him a chance to do that. On Garrett Nelson, I've had people be very critical of my comments on Garrett Nelson. Some people that, how dare I say that Garrett Nelson isn't, and then insert some sort of glowing review of Garrett Nelson. Well, here's how dare I. I don't see any statistics about Garrett Nelson that suggest he's going to be a pro player taken in the draft in 2023. Now, he could be, but if Garrett Nelson is taken in the draft in 2023, there are thousands of other players in college football who should also have a shot in the NFL draft. Garrett Nelson, as I said in my last video, I think would be a great loss to Nebraska, a bigger loss to Nebraska than it would be a gain for an NFL team. But I'm not the only one saying this. The commentators I listen to, the guys that I personally know who record videos for large audiences about Nebraska football, have all come to the same conclusion. Garrett Nelson, good college player, needs more development, is probably making a mistake by leaving Nebraska at a time when a coaching staff is coming along that is specifically geared to develop NFL talent. And if you listen to his interview with Adam Carricker, which I do encourage you to listen to, which Adam posted that video a couple days ago, Garrett just comes right out and says something I don't think Husker fans really want to hear, which is, well, basically, thanks for the memories, but I want to get paid. I'm paraphrasing this. I don't fault him for that. That's his choice. But he probably ought to transfer to some other team and get some coaching up and raise his draft stock and raise his potential future paycheck. I have nothing against Garrett Nelson. Seems like a fine young man. Got a lot of talent. Good guy. But on paper, and not just on paper, there were a lot of games last year where his name wasn't called one time. Listen, Tim Tebow, Stetson Bennett in Georgia. There are questions about whether Stetson Bennett will play in the pros. And if you can argue that Stetson Bennett might not get a shot in the pros as anything more than a backup if he even gets drafted, and he might not get drafted, although I suspect some team will take a chance on him, you can't make the case that Garrett Nelson is a surefire NFL player. And there's plenty of Nebraska players who never got 5 minutes in the pros. So I'm just saying that Garrett Nelson is a good college player at Nebraska. You can go down the line of a lot of players and a lot of teams who can make the same claims that they're not NFL players. That's all I'm saying. I wish him the best. Hope he gets a big contract. Hope he gets drafted. JoJo Domann didn't get drafted. So if JoJo Domann didn't get drafted, I don't know what Garrett Nelson thinks he's doing, but whatever. I have nothing against Garrett Nelson. Wish him the best. Hope he gets whatever his heart desires. And hopefully he can have a long career in the NFL, make $1 zillion, and prove me and a whole bunch of other people wrong that he's not ready yet for the pros. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Good luck, Garrett Nelson. Hope it all works out. Finally, on Georgia. Had a lot of comments about my Georgia video that went something like this. Yes, it's true that Nebraska recruiting in-state players seems to make sense. But the reason why it made sense for Georgia is because at Georgia, they've got a bigger pool of players to draw from. So having 60% of your players from Georgia when you're Georgia makes sense when you've got 10 times as many players to choose from. Ipso facto, that's why Georgia succeeded. Now, that story seems to make sense until you realize that it's also been the case for as long as Nebraska's been a school and Georgia's been a school. Georgia's had a bigger pool of players to draw from. It's always been the case. Never not been the case. It's not ever going to not be the case. So when you realize that back in the 90s, it was the same situation. It's the same situation now. It was the same situation 40 or 50 years ago. Then you realize that the one constant being the pool of players possible in both states or any states, that's always been true. The variable has been the recruiting that Nebraska has done in-state. And here's what I'm telling you. Recruiting in-state players as the majority of the players on your team, supplanted with skill players from other states, which I don't argue against, that's a recipe for success that guys like Tom Osborne had. Tommy Frazier, the legendary Tommy Frazier, maybe the one player that Nebraska players will say is the #1 legend of all time. He wasn't from Nebraska. I totally get that. I'm not arguing don't have players from out of state. I'm not arguing don't recruit from Georgia. In fact, you should recruit from Georgia. I'm saying that look at the facts. When Nebraska had a majority of players from in-state, no matter who the skilled players were they got from out of state, when that number crosses 55, 60%, Nebraska wins more games. When you get down to 40%, which is where the team is now, you're losing a whole lot of games. Is it because of the makeup of the players on the team, because they care and you've got some sort of work ethic with the players from Nebraska? I don't know. I would suspect it's because local players create an atmosphere of pride and love for the team and stability that players from out of state can latch onto. I mean, maybe that's it, or I don't know exactly. It's a philosophical thing. It's a psychological thing. Maybe it's in the water. I don't know. But what I know is recruiting players locally in larger numbers is critical for Nebraska's success, and that's including even bringing in players from out of state, skill player positions, who maybe all your starters are from out of state. Okay, I'm okay with that too. But if Nebraska's get back to the winning ways, I just believe they need to bring in more players from in-state. And I might be wrong about that, but Matt Rule agrees with me, and I'll go with the coach on this. Thank you for watching. I appreciate all the comments, the good, the bad, the ugly, the whatever. Whatever, leave a comment below. And with all credit in the world to my friend Adam Carricker, who likes to tell us to throw the bones, I'm going to tell you, in 2023, two things are true. Number one, Nebraska is going to win more games because number two, in 2023, bones will be thrown. Go Big Red. I'll see you next video.